Hey everybody, welcome back to Modern Day Musician. I'm John Tuohy, and I'm here with two awesome musicians who I've had the pleasure of playing with over the past few years. This is Zully Ramos and Joey Ramos. How are you guys?
Great.
Good. Waiting for the snow tonight.
Yeah, we're about to get a bunch of snow here in New England, and a lot of gigs are canceled. But well, it's great to talk to you two. We're gonna have a really interesting, wide-ranging discussion today, and having to do with all sorts of things about being a modern-day musician. And you two have I think, a really interesting path musically. Zuli will talk about your performing theater and stuff like that, and Joey will talk about all your 50 million gigs that you do, and we'll get there. Mr. Multi-talent, multi-hyphenate. So we'll talk about that, but can we start just for a few minutes talking about your musical sort of upbringings? And I know you probably have it slightly diverges in some places. So if you want to start, Zuli, and then Joey, you can chime in whenever you want.
Yeah, I often tell people we come from a musical family. Our parents are also musicians and singers. So growing up, I saw it happening with my parents and my parents' friends at the church. And so I started singing since I was 3 years old. I mean, for as long as I can remember, that's all I wanted to do. And I wanted to be in the groups with my parents, and I wanted to sing with them at the church because it was something that I felt like it was what I was born to do. And so singing my whole life in church, and then in middle school being taught about musical theater by my then music teacher, Mrs. Teresa Moriarty. She introduced me to the musical theater world, which broadened even more my musicality, because I come from, Pentecostal gospel music, and then I go into that musical theater world, which is kind of different. Even though nowadays they're doing some more, modern music and musicals. I think all of that just influenced me to how I sing now and how I perform now. When I perform now, I feel like I have still that like church girl in me, but I also have that musical theater in me where I like to do, kind of like jokes, or kind of involve the crowd to get them, going and amped up for the show. So,
Well, that's good. Well, and you do too. You're so fun to watch on stage. Apart from being an awesome singer, and your front person is like, you're very good leading a band. And just so people know, I've had the pleasure of playing with their group, Zuli Ramos and the OGs, a couple times. It's been really fun. I hope to do more in the future. Joey, what about you?
Yeah, just to segue what Zuli was saying is that we grew up listening and hearing music 24/7 practically. Our father would wake up at 5 in the morning, and he would start playing his nylon guitar and the classical guitar. So that's the first thing you hear, and then we were part of the worship team at church. Um, getting involved at school, like Zuli was saying, with her teachers. So, from a very early age, he's just surrounded with music. So, like I tell everyone, it's in my blood. It's in our DNA. Music, it just runs through our body. And so, like I tell people too, I don't know what I would do if I weren't doing music. And that influenced my playing. I tell people too, that was my music education. Was at the church, listening to our father, listening to our mother, the other musicians, the rhythms, the different tempos, all that stuff that you put musical language behind. But for us, it was just hearing it. It was like, oh, that's how that goes. Oh, that's how that beat goes. And again, that was our music education. Of course, as time went on, you get a little more formalized training and blah 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 blah. But that was our roots. And like you said about Zuli and her performance, you know, that's what you have to do when you're in front of a congregation. You have to almost entertain them and lead them, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Into worship or into praise. So watching our mother do that and other people, I think is what influenced us as musicians to this day. And Zuli, obviously, she kills it when she entertains
Wow.
and she leads the crowd. But again, that comes a lot from the gospel roots. and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm very grateful for that.
Man, that's really cool, and I feel like this is you hear this a lot from people who grew up playing in church when they're really young. I didn't get to that until I was older, but you hear how just the music can, you know, it just gets in your body and it gets in your soul, and it becomes something that you have a need to do. You know, and you two just said, you know, you heard your dad play nylon guitar and just surrounded by music all the time. And I feel like that's fairly unique. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people who have that too, but like, especially for people who actually want to pursue it as a profession, moving on, you don't hear that super often, although there's certain pockets that you definitely hear that. Do you feel like certain styles are second nature to you? Like you don't have to think about how they actually go? Because I mean, your band performs a wide range of a very wide, probably maybe the widest range I've ever heard in a band of music. Do you find that certain flavors, certain styles just come very naturally, and other things you had to enjoy more as a fan first before you did them?
Yeah, I think definitely when it comes to um, any Latin song that we do, especially growing up in a Latin church, we did a lot of Latin music. And so that when we do that type of genre, it does feel comfortable. It does feel like it's something that we've known our whole lives. Because it is kind of like second nature. We grew up with it, listening to it 7 days a week. So when we do a Latin tune with certain rhythms, you know, like salsa, it kind of does bring back that like childhood memory of singing certain songs in church in that rhythm. Um, Personally, I think like a little bit of challenge was to mix my sound with, let's say, like that hardcore rock music, because I didn't really listen to hardcore rock music until later in life, until I was 19, 20 years old. So, and then when I fell in love with that, I was like, wow, I do like this music, but how can I incorporate what I'm used to singing and what I've known so hard and what's pretty much my core, and putting it into something else, right? Which is like that hard rock, that maybe even that 90s grunge rock sound. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how do I put myself in there? Because I love that music, but does it make sense? And it does. It kind of does. It's, miraculously, it comes together, especially when we do like Toxicity, you know, such a, I mean, it's sung by a male, so it's in a male key, but I have to sing it in my way, my own version with my own flavor to it, right? So it kind of, it was a little harder to get into that, but now that we have been doing it, it's been like, I don't know, a breeze, I think.
That's really interesting. Did you find that when you first started singing that it was almost like, you ever seen those memes about the wrong drummer for the gig, where it's like a jazz guy and he's at a heavy metal gig and it's like doesn't work, or it's like the reverse? Did you feel like, was it that, where you like, this doesn't, I want to do this, it doesn't quite, I don't know how to place how I'm singing in this style? Like it's almost like you know, I hear sometimes bad theater arrangements of rock music. There's some really good ones too, but there's bad ones, and you hear us and you're like, it's like the diction is all wrong, and it's just it's the wrong vibe. Like, did you find that you had to kind of adjust to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we are all, especially with certain songs that we grew up listening, we're so conditioned to know the song as it
Mm-hmm.
is,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's sung this way, this arrangement this way. And so when I'm doing it, you know, I want to honor that song the way it was done, but I also have to remember that it's me singing it and not that person or not that band. So yeah, the first time I remember singing that, or like we sang it, and in my mind I was like, is this even right? I don't know how this is. And then, I mean, this is while it's happening, right? But then when I heard it because someone had recorded the song, I was like, no, that was so badass. That was so cool. I guess in that moment, it wasn't I felt like it might have not been clicking. But then after hearing it, I was like, no, it totally did.
And that
It's
gave you
just-
more confidence to go, okay, all right, I can do this.
And we're going to do it again.
And we're
Exactly.
going to do it again. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Joey, do you have a...
Well,
Oh, go
keep
ahead.
in mind that we did, for example, that Toxicity song without rehearsal. We just played it.
Okay.
We played it at the gig. Zully was like, "You guys ready? You guys ready? Let's go. 1,
I
2,
like
3,
that.
4, 5, 6. Pop."
I like that. Zully, I like you throw the guys, you're like, all right, we're doing this. It's like, okay.
Listen, if you
Let's do
did
it.
your homework, you'll be okay.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Joey, did you find that, I mean, so you play a bunch of different instruments. You would say that bass is probably your home, right? Is that, I don't want to speak for you, but you would probably say that, right? But you also play guitar, you also play keys, you sing, you do a lot of, is there something else that I don't know that you play?
So,
Oh,
the
saxophone,
first-
right?
yeah,
Yes.
that was the first instrument I started, was the saxophone. I actually signed up for, I think it was the snare. It was some type of percussion. I can't remember. And everybody signed up for snare when I was in 6th grade. I can't remember. And they're like, we gave 5 snares already, so you got to choose trumpet, saxophone, or something. I was like, I guess I'll do saxophone. And that's where I started playing music. Prior to that, I don't think I was playing anything. Again, I can't remember that far back right now. But the saxophone, and I trained. My parents, they were able to give me saxophone lessons. I also started doing guitar lessons, but I wasn't that into it. Um, I don't know why. I think I saw my dad as the guitarist,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, I don't want to, almost like I don't want to step his boundaries, and I want to play my role as a sax player.
Mm-hmm.
Let him be the guitarist. But every now and then, I was just obviously just pick up his guitar and try to do things. And then my parents, Zully, do you remember this? Our parents, they bought an upright piano that was not tuned that well. It was very like almost honky tonk type of like sound. And then we eventually got it tuned. That's where I started playing the piano. But anyway, so when I was young, it was saxophone, guitar, piano, and then the bass, which is what my primary instrument is now. And again, all those instruments are foundational, right? In the gospel music, right? You need to have that piano or organ. You need to have that bass. You need to have that drum. You need to have the guitar, and then horns. And in our church, we had percussions, which that's what we love, having percussions in the band.
Mm-hmm.
What else? What else did we have? Obviously a choir, right? You got to have a choir. But yeah, those are the foundations of my roots of music: saxophone, piano, guitar, bass. Yeah, and nowadays I primarily focus on the bass, but I do play guitar and piano quite often. I don't play saxophone as much, but I still have it there.
Did you find that any particular, let's call it style or genre, works better for one instrument? I mean, the obvious one is, saxophone lends itself to jazz, funk, classical, right? Maybe better than, I mean, unless you're playing for Bruce Springsteen, obviously, or whatever. But like, did you find that but let's take your rhythm section instruments. Did you find that any particular one in playing in whatever genre of song you happen to be doing was a little bit more difficult than another, or you had to adapt either rhythmically or stylistically?
Yeah, it's a good question because let's say if you take a piano instrument, and you take I don't know, a lot of the worship songs, or we grew up doing praise and worship. They were more like block chords and some melodic lines here and there, very similar to what we do at Broad River Church.
Mm-hmm.
But if I were to be placed like in a black gospel church, I would be totally lost because they have certain voicing and certain chord progressions that I still to this day I think I don't have that knowledge. I could probably figure it out, but I mean at this point, but back then in my teenage years when I was playing at the church, there was no way. There's no way I was going to be able to figure it out. Actually, what our keyboard player, Josh Setti, when he was telling me that when he met a black gospel player in his teenage years, that opened up a whole spectrum to him. Like, whoa, you can do this chord, you can do that chord, leading tone to this. I was like, what? And it really changed his playing at a young age, or at his teenage years, that helped him progress. But going back to your question, is that yeah, the instrument and the genre is for sure it's very very unique. Saxophone, like you mentioned before, I studied classical saxophone and then I went into jazz. Two different type of worlds, but equally as important, equally as good, equally as integral in my musical training. And then as a bass guitarist, again, same setting. If I'm doing praise and worship, I'm going to be doing a lot of like just, staying there with the 1 or 5 or 4 chord, playing gospel music now. Okay, it's another beast. So, but it's fun, it's different, it's challenging. And I think it makes you grow as a musician too, if you can try to expand your mind into different types of genres and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's funny because I've never been a genre. Like there's a lot of people, especially our age, who would be like, they grew up, I listen to this. This is what I like. I like, pick your niche. I'm an emo kid and and that's what I do is I listen to emo, or I'm, whatever. And I just never, for whatever reason, for me, I was never a genre. Like if you put a gun to my head and say, pick one genre and that's all you can listen to, I'd probably say rock, just because that is, it's the first thing I heard from my parents. But like, I never was about a genre. I always liked individual artists or individual bands, and wherever they came from, on any like something would touch me and I'd go, oh wow, okay. And it would be something there. And so for me, I think playing some other things, as long as I'm reasonably familiar with them, I can kind of hopefully get to the essence of what it means to play it and get as close to authentic as I can, I guess. And so but the interesting thing is with you two is that when I've sat in with the OGs and you play this huge variety of music, from Banda Blanca to Muse and like all this. I mean, it's really all over. And Whitney Houston. I mean, you have this huge repertoire. None of it sounds wrong. It sounds like everyone knows what to do in every genre and subgenre. And I'm guessing maybe that's just sort of instinctual at this point, right? Maybe there wasn't any sort of point where I'm going to focus on playing 80s funk music. It was just kind of happened.
I really think growing up and you can attest to this, Zully, is that growing up in that church we grew up in, we played praise and worship music, quote unquote, but it went from salsa to merengue to a slow ballad to maybe a couple, maybe close to rock, not totally rock, but a little rocking out. I was just remembering that our mother would put songs that now that I realized that they were country songs, and I'm like, oh, look at that, see, we have country influence, and without even knowing, my mother was like, I'm putting on a country song. No, she was
That's
just
cool.
singing along to a song that eventually that was a country song we were listening to.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's just, I think we were encompassed since a young age with a wide variety of music and genres that I think it correlates to this day.
I think for me, when it comes to like the like genres and music, like you said, John, like I don't want to be contained to just one genre. I mean, I just love listening to it all. There was one point that I got into Bollywood music because it was just so interesting to me and so cool to hear the different sounds and rhythms and stuff like that. And so like whenever people come to my show and they ask me, what genre do you guys play? And I say, my genre is everything.
Yeah.
And then they look at me and say, no, seriously, what do you guys play?
Yeah.
And then I'm just like, just stick around and you'll see for yourself. I think personally, when I'm in my car and I'm rocking out to music, it's literally all different kinds of genres. And that's what I wanted when I did this band. I was like, I just want to do it all. I want someone who, loves 60s music, and someone who loves 90s, and someone who loves Latin, and someone who loves R&B, to all be in the same place and all just jam together. You know what I mean? And I think that's the best part of that, like just mixing it all up and making it your own version, and just having fun.
I love that. Now, so you've touched on this a little bit, but maybe we can explore it a little further, which is you have both Honduran, your dad is Honduran and your mom is Puerto Rican, or is it the other way around?
Other way around.
Okay. So how do these traditions, musical traditions especially, how do they play into, let's say, current day music that you play with the OGs or otherwise?
Yeah. Well, first let's start with Puerto Rican music, right? Which is something that a lot of people know of because of salsa and merengue. Obviously, Bad Bunny is a huge star in Puerto Rico that has been, just making his rounds around the world, and everyone around the world is listening to salsa and reggaeton and dembow, which is really awesome, right? For people that may not have listened to that to now be listening to it. So, particularly in that culture, it does influence me a lot in let's just say for my originals, I wanted, congas, and I wanted, even if it was a rock song, like for example, the song Helping Hand, it's kind of like when you hear it, it's like a rock song, but when Larry and I were working together on it, I was like, I want congas in there. I want a shaker. I want to like just add a little bit of what we call razzle dazzle to the song, because essentially, like, I feel like it fills that sound. I'm so used to hearing music with, 15, 16 instruments, so that when I was creating my own song, I wanted that. I wanted that Latin feel into it. And then when it comes to like the Honduran side, Honduran music is very also versatile. There's a lot of punta music, there's marimbas, and like even though marimbas is bigger in Guatemala, it is also big in Honduras. And so like there's different sounds, but that's like rhythm wise, like African rhythms. And so it's just really cool to incorporate that stuff into our music. When we just did the show at Park City Music Hall last Wednesday, and we did Long Train, the drummer and the percussionist, they were like, we would love to see if we can take a little moment to have like a little drum and percussion moment solo. And I was like, yes, because you're thinking of Long Train, right? Like an old school rock song. And then in the middle, you're going to have this just out of the blue kind of like percussion drum solo going back at each other. And for me, I love it because it brings me back to that like sound, the drum sound, the different kind of rhythms. And then we get back into the song. So I think whatever I do, my Honduran and Puerto Rican side, like they just mix together with the beats and the and the percussion instruments, and I think that's just what makes it like so much better.
Yeah. Well, it's also a unique take on something that you probably wouldn't expect. I remember, I don't know if you guys are familiar, but there's this band from, oh man, I think it's either Venezuela or Brazil, called Puya, and they were the first band I'd heard in the 90s that was a heavy metal band with like Brazilian style influence, and there's like part choro music, part rhythmically, and not necessarily like it sounds like a heavy rock band. I was like, wow. Shout out to my old friend Juddy. I don't know if he's going to listen to this, but he showed me this and I was not ready for it at the time. I was like, what is this? But going back and listening to it, it's like, that is such a cool blend, I mean, and you hear they have percussion elements like you're talking about as well, and they have low tuned guitars as if you were in Seven Dust or something like that. And I was like, man, this is a cool blend that actually works great together. And so you're doing this now with the OGs.
Yeah, and I think it's very important to me at least, because I'm very proud of where my parents come from, and my brother and I, we were born here, but my mom comes from Honduras and my dad was Puerto Rico. So for me, it's very important to try and incorporate our culture and our music and not necessarily be a salsa band, right?
Right.
We're a band that does all kinds of things, but still we have our like soul in it, with our parents' backgrounds and stuff like that. And I think it's important, but it's also a cool thing, because then you hear a song in a different way, in a different version, like how our minds may be, maybe somebody sees this song as a heavier metal song, but maybe I want to turn it into a bachata song. I mean, I don't know. You know what I mean?
It's very creative. Joey, do you feel the same way about incorporating that into especially original music, I would imagine, but even covers too.
Yeah, it's nice to give a song like Zully mentioned, like Lawn Train, which has been played by many cover bands out there, but to give it that I guess Latin flavor, or it doesn't have to necessarily be Latin, but a different type of feel, a different type of sound, and where you can awe the crowd a little bit instead of being like, all right, it's the same old Long Train. Great. It's great to give it that a little bit of percussion feel, if that different maybe rhythmic feeling as well. Where Josh would maybe do a little dun 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 dun, a little bit,
A little
just a
Montuno action in there.
yeah,
Yeah,
a little Mantuno here, and I'm just going boom 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 boom, something simple as that, just
yeah.
around, and then it gets listener to be like, oh, that is cool.
You always
So,
know when bands who are playing covers are just going through the motions, because it's like a snooze fest, but you don't do that, which I love. I don't. I've probably heard Long Train running on about 50,000 gigs, just not even playing, but just like listening, and I've never heard it the way you guys do it. So that's really cool.
we're working on an outro, by the way, for that. So keep your eye.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
We're working on something there.
Oh, cool. Okay, I'm excited about that. So let's talk about. So let me confess something first. It's not a confession, but my band Mile Marker Zero, we have two brothers in it. My singer Dave, and the drummer Doug. And Doug's the younger one, and Dave's older by 4 years, I think. And so they've been in the band for a long time. And being in a band with brothers sometimes can be. Now, I mean, we're all old and wise and mature, and so it's fine. But it is a very specific dynamic that happens when you're in a band with your sibling. And what I've noticed between you two is that you have ultimate respect for each other, and you recognize each other's strengths and things like this. How has it always been that way? Have you sort of? I mean, you guys have played together on and off probably forever, right? Am I right? Or so how does that dynamic work within the band?
Yeah, well, ever since I was a little girl, I was obsessed with my brother, like obsessed. He didn't like me very much. Just kidding. But I was obsessed with him, and I remember always just being like, Mom, like, let's do this for Joey. Or like if I got like a bag of chips, I'd be like, can I get a bag of chips for
Aw.
Joey? Did Joey ever do that for me, John? No, but I always looked up to him. And so between my brother and I, we have 6 years and a half of difference. So by the time I was in middle school, he was already going off to college. So there was a lot of the moments growing up that I didn't have him with me because he was in college. But even with that, I would call him and he would always pick up my phone calls, always answer me. He was like always there for me, even though physically he wasn't there. So I think that I've always looked up to him and had a sense of like, this is my brother. At the end of the day, the day that God calls our parents home, I have my brother. That's all I have, So, why live life being, let's just say angry or mad or pissed off about a certain situation when he's all that I've got, you know what I mean? As a brother. So, there are definitely times that there's, when we do something and something might bother one of us, right? Because we're humans. We're not robots. We can't be absolutely happy all the time. But what I tend to do is I could be upset in the moment, but it's like, who cares, right? Because why would I, let's just say, stay upset or mad about it or keep going at it or picking at that situation? It's like, listen, something happened. Who cares? Let's move on and keep it going. Life is too short, John. You know what I
Mm,
mean?
I do.
And let's have happier moments. Let's have joyful moments. And whatever didn't work or doesn't work for us, just sweep it away and kind of put it aside, and then we just keep it pushing. I know I can't speak for my brother, but I know that us doing this as siblings, it means a lot to us. Like
Mm,
we're so proud to do it as the Ramos siblings. Growing up with music in our lives and being able to do it now as adults and having fun and doing it together, it's a big deal. I always tell my brother, I want to lift the Ramos name up. I want our name to be known as this brother and sister that really just talked it all out, worked it all out, loved each other hard, and believed in each other real
that's
hard.
beautiful. That's
You
really
know?
beautiful. I love that. I have the same gap. My sister's 7 years younger than me, and so I know what that's like. And I'm sure she would say something. Not that we played music together, but she would say something similar. As that, when she was going through those difficult times that I was at school or whatever. And so and we have a awesome relate. I mean, we've always had a good relationship, but we have a really great one now. And I'm seeing a similar dynamic in you two, and I love it. And I totally agree. I think that. Especially in the world we live in today, if you can lessen the negativity and really try to incorporate family and friends in a deep way in your life, it's better for you and it's better for everyone else.
Absolutely.
Also, we need a sibling to keep in check on the other sibling, and my brother keeps me in check.
Yeah, no,
I'm a little
Yeah,
cuckoo,
that's
and
I mean
vice versa.
that's important. Well, I mean, because you can say things that if someone else said it to you, you'd be super offended probably. But if you have a sibling, you're like, yeah, knock it off. What do you do? Like, it's like, okay, right, you're right.
Yeah.
Because you'll take it deeper probably. I think.
I have a very quick fuse, and when Zully sees it, she comes over to me and she goes like,
Yeah,
"Bro,
yeah, yeah,
nothing to
yeah.
sweat about. Calm down, let it go." And I hear her voice, and it calms me down. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, "All right, all
I
right."
mean, that's amazing. Um, so so obviously, I mean, there's a few things that we could explore with the partnership. Do you two, when you're coming up with new material, do you sort of pass ideas back and forth? Say, I'm thinking of something like that. Oh yeah, and like you build on it. How does that work if you're writing new songs? What's the genesis of that normally?
Normally it's me coming over to his house and saying, "Hey, I recorded all these songs on my phone. Can we just do it?" And he's like, "Okay." And I personally don't know how to read music, so I can't say this is an A, B, and a C and give me an F sharp. I don't know what those things are to me, right? Could I hit those notes? Maybe, but I just don't personally know them, right? So I have to sing them. And so the cool dynamic, though, of my brother and I is that I can sing something and I'm like, no, 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 that's not it. No, 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 that's not it. And then he hits the mark and I'm like, that's it. And then that's how a song comes together. I
That's how we wrote
remember,
"Get Out."
yeah, I remember when we did Get Out, I was telling him, like, no, I hear this progression, the progression in my mind, right? I heard it in my head, but I just, again, couldn't verbalize it. But he
Hmm.
was like, just sing it and I'll find it. And I did. And it's, to this day, it's one of my favorite songs ever because it's just such a jam. We worked on it together and he knew exactly what I wanted. So I know that moving forward, when we create more new music, it's going to be, I don't want to say easy because writing music is never easy and you hate it and you love it and you hate it again. And
Yeah.
that's just what it is. But I think because of our dynamic and how we understand each other, he understands my language of,
Hmm.
I want this, or I think of this, being like a ta 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 ta, whatever moment. He understands what I mean. So I think moving forward, it'll be a little bit easier to create songs because we understand each other's language, basically.
Yeah, I think growing up together, and making music together and singing along with each other has almost, like you can even hear it with our harmonies, how in tune we are. So that's vocally, I think we're even in tune mentally, spiritually, and so like all that connection. Once she starts, I don't know, she comes up with an idea. Like as soon as I hear it, it's like I hear it in my head already too. And I may be off a little bit here and there. She's like, no, I'll do this and that. All right, here. Ah, that's it right there. the connection that we have, and it comes a lot with the respect that we have for each other, the love that we have for each other, and the unity, right? That our parents instilled in us since a young age comes out in the music.
Love that.
Facts.
That's yeah, facts. Yeah, that's cool, man. I love that. That's really great. Okay, so since this is modern day musician, I'm gonna throw a little curveball at you too. So I want to talk about live performance for a minute, and I want you each to say, if you can think of something, one thing that is very crucial to you when you go do a live performance, whether it's something, I need to have my water bottle here. It could be a mental thing or whatever. What's one really important thing that you are always paying attention to or would like? And what's one giant pet peeve that you have about live performances?
Okay, so
And I will cut out anything that you don't want me to leave.
No. Okay, so I think I always, well, there's two things that I do normally before a show. One thing is I need to feel nervous. If I do not feel nervous, I feel like I do not care. If I do not care, I will not do a good job. And when I say nervous, it's not in the sense of what are they going to say about me? What are they going to think about me? I need to be nervous, excited to do it so that I know I'm really going to give my all everywhere, in that performance. I feel like if I go in going, I got this and it's okay and it's a piece of cake, the care that I have just goes away and I'm not going to perform at my best capability, Sometimes I may not be 100% vocally there. And I express that to my band. I'm like, guys, I'm sorry. I feel like I'm at 75% today. Luckily, they always encourage me and love me so much. But when that situation happens, I'm like even more nervous than I would normally be. But then that just makes me dial it back, right? It makes me do dynamics. If I can't really reach that note tonight, I'm going to do that in falsetto. You know what I mean? It's just knowing my body and knowing my vocal capabilities. So I feel like being nervous is a good thing for me.
Do you have to get yourself nervous sometimes? Like if it's, or is it just sort of happen? It just sort of happens as you go.
Yeah, it happens the second that I get there. The second that I get there, I'm okay, showtime. And again, it's not nerves where I'm like, I have to go to the bathroom and it's more just nerves of I want this to be good because I believe in us and I know our sound and I know, and hopefully there's new people here seeing us and I want them to get a good first impression of us as well. You know what I mean? So that's why I do the nerves. And then my second thing would be take a shot of whiskey. Take a shot of JMO because, listen, a girl loves her whiskey.
You get nervous and then you calm the nerves immediately and you get this train going.
Yeah.
Speaking of
and then my
train.
biggest pet peeve, and I think everyone knows this, is the amount that I sweat. Because again, I'm not parking and barking, right? I'm not standing there and being like, don't cry for me, Argentina. Right? I'm jumping, I'm sweating, I'm dancing, and I'm looking at everyone and pointing at the musicians like, let's go, And so by the end of the night, I'm like, no one touched me. And that's another thing, guys. Let me just bring this up real quickly. I love everyone. I love you all. But don't hug me after the show. I'm so sweaty.
I'm going to be gross. Please don't touch me.
So gross. And they're like, come give me hugs and kissing me on my forehead. I'm like, you're literally drinking my sweat, guys.
Shake my hand, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, give me a pound. Give me an elbow. But don't get me wrong. I love it. I'm a hugger. But maybe give me 5 minutes to cool down and remove some of the sweat before we start hugging. And then I'm cool with that.
See, that's really practical. And that's one of the things I've been really obsessed with as I'm talking to a lot of people on this podcast is some of the practical realities of being a musician and playing live gigs. There's one. I'm super sweaty at the end. Don't touch me. It's little things like that because that could get in your head if you're like, I want to talk to people, but I don't want to be. Don't touch me. Don't, you gotta so that's cool. Joey, what about you? Something that is important to you that you focus on, you think about, and then one pet peeve.
I think for me, the most important for me, the most important thing is to have good sound. I need to have a good sound, man. If I don't have a good sound, I don't enjoy the performance. I really don't, and it's frustrating because it's up here, right? And it's here, obviously, but and I try to let it go, and it's like, all right, keep going. You're performing, put on the show, but it's just if I can't hear the good quality sound, it doesn't give me a good feeling of performing. So that being said, I think you touched upon this a couple podcasts ago about the in-ears, and so ever since I started using in-ears, it's helped me as a performer to be able to hear my voice, hear my instrument, hear the instrumentations that I need to hear. For example, I need to hear Zully. I need to hear her lead. Um, and as a bass player, I need to hear some of that kick, so I can be in line with him. But that makes the whole performance for me more enjoyable. If we're using wedges, it's just I think I'm done with using wedges. But if we have to use wedges, then by all means, all good. But it has to be a good sound on stage, or else it just doesn't work for me.
So what happens when it's not? Like, I mean, we all play bars, right? And stuff like that, and tight quarters, and it's loud. And so everyone cranks up. And if you have a loud drummer, like it's just hard. So is there anything that you do in those situations? Let's say in-ears are not an option and it's a wedge.
Mhm.
So what do you, like you're sitting with another band or something, what do you do?
So lately, what I've been trying to do is, if it's a small place and we're not going to use wedges, we're not going to use in-ears, then I try to put this. First of all, I try to do the sound myself, because I feel like when I do the sound, I feel like it's going to be better. So I'll put the speakers behind us, actually, instead of putting it in front of us, and then that way we can all hear ourselves. Zully can hear her voice, and I can control the sound with my iPad. Um, Again, this is for a small venue, small bar, and we don't need to have wedges because it's going to be too loud anyways. It may feedback anyways, and we're not going to use in-ears. Okay, fine. Then I'll just have the two speakers behind us, and we're good to go. I've used that a couple of times, and it's worked out fine. Zully can hear her voice. I'm always trying to be like, after every song, can you hear your voice? Can you hear your voice? Say yes, or she goes like, yeah, and she'll tell me, can you put me up a little bit more? And can you tell blah 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 to turn down a little bit more? It's getting a little bit too loud on my left side. Let's bring it down a little bit. So I'll tweak it, because that way, if she's hearing good quality sound because she's in the front, then that means everybody else is probably hearing good sound too. So that's one way to alleviate. If I'm not doing sound, then I'll try to communicate as best as I can to the sound engineer, what my requirements are, what the band requirements are. That way he can at least understand it. And the other thing I think I've tried to do now that I'm a little older is I pick and choose, kind of like who I'm performing with or where I'm performing. And I think that helps out a lot with not having that anxiety of like, is it gonna sound good or not? I think at this juncture, thankfully to God, I'm able to be like, all right, I'm gonna say no to this one, but I am gonna say yes to this one. I think I'm gonna enjoy this one a little bit more. No offense to anyone, this is gonna be the gig that I feel it's gonna be most productive
Yeah.
for us as musicians and as for the audience. So yeah, I think those are the ways that I've tried to the solutions to the problem.
That's really good. And so all right, being choosy with your gigs is one part of that equation. That makes sense. I mean, obviously, when you're first starting out, you have to just take everything. But when you get to a point where you've been at it a while and maybe you move up the ranks as far as the people that you're playing with, that you're like, wow, this person's great, I want to play with them. You can be a little bit choosier. Is that kind of what you're saying? You feel
Yeah.
like, okay, if I know this is going to be an unknown situation, the place sucks, the sound is terrible, I've done it before, I played with these people, you kind of
Yeah.
just gracefully bow out. Is that sort of how you
Yeah.
feel?
Yeah. And I think, again, because probably through time, I've learned how to communicate these uh, a lot better, and I've learned how to, you know, there's no need to lie or anything like that. There's no, it's just be like, you know what, I'm sorry, I'm not going to take this gig. It's just not going to work out for me,
Yeah.
or blah blah blah. And I think everybody understands, and it could be amicable. Maybe they take it the wrong way. I'm not sure, but this is how it works for me, and yeah, I'm choosing not to go there, and blah 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 blah. The other thing that's I think also has helped out a lot is uh, being that I am music director for a couple of places like at Broad River Church or with Zully and the OGs, is being direct. So hey, can you turn down a little bit? Or oh, that patch you used before, just turn that down a little bit. Just being direct. And it really just, because we're performing, right? So it has to be kind of game time decisions or game time talk, and be like, oh, can you just play a little bit lighter for this and blah blah blah. And I feel like the musicians that I've been working with, none of them take any offense to it. They're like, oh yeah, sure, yeah, no problem. Because they want to make sure that the performance is going to be good as well. So being direct,
Yeah, that's really helpful. Instead of just giving looks, I used to do that.
Turn down, man.
Yeah, one of the drummers in one of my bands, he would always be like, "Oh, I just got the Tuohy stink eye," is what he called it. And I was like, "No, I didn't." And he's like, "Yeah, you did." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, I didn't like that, Phil." Whatever. No, you're right. The directness is good on that level. And because I'm curious, what do you look for? For both of you, since you're leader / co-leaders in your group, what do you look for in a guitar player? Because here's why I'm asking. There's a lot of us guitar players who maybe specialize in a particular areas, particular types of sounds and approaches, but because your repertoire is just so wide, I'm assuming you have some very specific criteria for when you hire a guitar player for. It could be for the OGs, or it could be for other various other activities. What do you look for?
Well, no, I was just gonna say, I think not only guitarists, I think every and I'll touch upon the guitarists, but I think every musician that's going to be playing with the OGs, or even at Broad River Church, just come prepared, right? And coming knowing their parts and knowing their parts. That's it. This is your part. This is what you're going to do. Stay in your lane. And unless you've been told, go ahead, be free with that moment. Just knowing your part and all that stuff. Now, as a guitarist, yeah, because like you touched upon it, that the genres are so wide, right? So being able to cover a rock song like Toxicity, being able to do I don't know, Prince, Kiss, or Purple Rain, being able to go from genre to genre, and you don't have to play it perfectly. You don't have to play it like the recording. Just being able to be a chameleon, I guess. Where you'll be able to have that sound. I don't know, on your pedals or whatever you do down there, whatever you guys are pressing down there,
whatever all that attention is on the floor,
or I don't know if you're faking it till you make it, but whatever. but then you're able to cover those genres, and again, and you stay in your lane, do what you got to do. At the same time, with the OGs, and I tell this to all the musicians, especially the guitarists that come and cover, follow Zully, follow what the band is doing. We may not play Long Train exactly like it, because actually we will not play it exactly like the recording.
Yeah.
So just hear us out, feel our rhythm, feel what we're doing, and obviously know the chord changes and all that stuff. And then put your own little touch to it. I'm not expecting X person to do it exactly like Y. I want you to do it like the way you do it. You got hired for this gig, bring your flavor to it, bring your touch to it. By the way, in parentheses, if you're going to be coming as a guitar player, if you're going to be coming with ultimate guitar chord charts, I want you to do the work. Make your own charts. I may provide it. I'm not sure. I'll try, but do the work, because sometimes the chord charts could be they could be wrong, not wrong, but they could be altered. Let's put it that way. So it's not necessarily wrong, but it could be just a little different. And I'd rather you do the homework, because that way, when you come to the gig, I may tell you to do something different, or Zully may tell you to do something different. Just listen to the album and do your own little notes, and then be ready to get challenged a little bit on the gig.
Well, Zully, any from you? What do you think?
Yeah, I think Yes, it's definitely being versatile, right? Just being able to come in and jam with us because essentially we're doing our version of that particular song. It's, it's Zully Ramos and the OG's cover of Kiss by Prince. You know what I mean? So it might go a little left, it might go a little right. It's just what it is, right? And I think that's the cool thing about music, right? Music, there's really nothing wrong about music. Yeah, sometimes if you play some funky notes, it might not work together, right? It may not mesh, but music is wide. It's so like it's here or there, it's whatever you want. And personally, I say this joke all the time, but it's honestly the truth. I always say I want musicians, especially like guitar players, that have soul. Okay, when you put that guitar on, I want you to play like you are crying inside, and that guitar is the only thing making you happy. You know what I mean? I say I want a musician that seasons their food with more than salt and pepper. Okay, like I want that soul and that flavor in there because I think that's what makes the sound so like together, right? And so different is you may play a different style than someone else, but I love that. I love it. When I have John Tuohy play with us as, an OG that day, I want to hear John. I don't want to hear anyone else. I want to hear John and the way he gets down on that guitar and the way he puts his soul out in there playing that instrument, So I think for me, it's more of that, like what kind of person you are as well, like your character, right? If you're like, because I feel like you can tell with people's characters, like how they are and who they are, and just how groovy they feel inside. You know what I mean? Like we had a gig once, and I was telling the young man, like, don't worry, like just have fun. And I know he was excited and nervous to play with us, but I was like, you're gonna kill it. You're gonna be awesome. And he did. He had a great time with us that night. He totally killed it. And I think, we often live in our heads, right? Like, oh my God, am I gonna do this great? Am I gonna sound great? But at the end of the day, I want you to sound like you, boo. That's it. Just you. Nobody else. And I think that's what makes whenever my brother's like, oh, we're gonna need to get someone, and I'm like, thank God we are so blessed to have you, John. We have like our friend Dave Porter that come in and save the day for us, and it's just like I feel blessed because I'm like, wow, these guitars that we have are just so cool and they're so dope.
And you guys put your own touch on it, and we love it. Like,
yes,
we love it.
That's cool.
Yes.
That's really cool. Well, thank you. First of all, I love sitting in with you guys. It's really fun. I enjoy it, and I have this problem that I can't not be me, even when I try. That's part of my. That's part of my. I think when I was younger, it was more self-conscious about it. I was like, why can't I play this like Eric Clapton or whatever it was, and like I just can't. For whatever reason, it never worked. That was always me, and now that is just what I would bring to anything I play. I can't mask it. I'll play the parts correctly, hopefully, but like, yeah, that special sauce is important. But I will say this too. I mean, I see. When I go see some bands, sometimes I'll see a guitar player get up there and they're so self-conscious about what it is. And I understand, look, it can be nerve-wracking sitting in with a band and you've never played with them before and you're not sure all the songs. I understand that, but yet you're also there for performance. And I see them get very insular and they get in their head, they get here, and you can almost see them like shelling into themselves a little, you know what I mean? Like physically.
Yeah.
And then your playing comes out that way too, which is not, no one wants to look on stage and go, that person is really insecure about this song. Like you really like, that kind of, you get the vibe Zully's talking about, you're that connection with the audience starts to get staticky in those situations. So,
you know how many times I am confidently wrong?
Yeah, right.
Because listen, I have confidence. I'm on that stage. I do not care. But there are times where I was like, "Ooh, that note was so bad.
That was
like,
not it.
That was not cut the stuff." But it's like
the beginning of Park City. I was so nervous. Like I wanted us to give the best performance, right? And the first couple of songs, which was I think White Rabbit and Get Out, right? I definitely hit some wrong notes, and it's loud in there, right? That bass is going through the house, man. And I'm like, oh, whoops, that's the wrong one.
Well, it's good to get that over early though, because then you can just kind of rely. Like, all right, there it is. There's my mistake. It's a mulligan. I'm on to the next thing now. Well, that actually leads me into the next thing I wanted to talk about, which is memorable performances that you've done. Would you count the one you did at Park City? By the way, that's in Bridgeport, Connecticut, for anybody interested. Really nice venue. It's been open a few years now. Would that be one that you consider a really memorable gig, or do you have a couple that, and what stands out for you on these memorable gigs? Maybe give me a couple.
Yeah, I think I have a few. Definitely Park City was one because we've been dying to perform there for so long. And it's really cool to have a stage where we have space because we are 8 people in our band. And sometimes we have to, perform elbow to elbow. But when we have space like that, and then a sound engineer that, it kind of also gives my brother a little bit of peace to focus on himself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And his instrument, as opposed to having to focus on the sound and all that. We had, a sound engineer doing all that. So it was so cool. And then obviously seeing our friends and family and new people that we didn't know just stick around and jam with us all night on a Wednesday night, to be, real.
That's awesome.
It was really cool. It was really awesome. And then another gig that I really loved a lot was when we did a whole Pink Floyd gig at Seaside Tavern.
Fun.
We did all of Dark Side of the Moon. That was when we were a band called Superband, and we did a whole Dark Side of the Moon
Cool.
night, and then we also did all these other covers of Pink Floyd music, and it just was really cool because that I think was like 9-10 of us. It was just a bunch of us put together.
Man, fun.
And we did a whole show, which we ended up doing again at Acoustics, which is what it was before Park City Music Hall.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, it was a really cool thing. I think Pink Floyd music is like awesome, and I think people should totally listen to it more because I think it's really cool. And then lastly, it was doing the Live at 5 opening performances,
Cool.
which the first year we opened for Live at 5 was for Marcy Playground, and then the year after that we opened for MC Hammer. So it's really cool to be able to say we did these things, and we're going to do more things.
That's awesome. Alive at 5 is in downtown Stamford, right? Is where they'd have that, and they close off some streets and stuff, and they, right? Don't they? Where do they do the performance there? Is it on the?
It used to be Columbus Park.
Yeah.
Columbus Park. Oh, okay.
Then to Mill River, but now
it's over.
No more Live at 5s.
I heard that. That's thanks. Well, you got to play on 2 of them.
Well, maybe they can put us in there on a Thursday night.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking it, manifesting.
Do it, yeah. Put it out in the universe. Joey, you have any memorable? It doesn't have to be with the OGs. It could be with some other performances too.
Yeah, no, but for sure the Live at 5 that was so cool. Huge stage with huge sound system. I mean, the whole 9 yards, right? I think they use the sound system that they use at Gov Ball. I think that's what they were telling me.
Wow, cool.
So it was really cool. And then in my early 20s, when I was still playing saxophone, I went on tour with a Spanish worship singer. His name is Juan Carlos Alvarado, and we were playing like these football stadiums, like in Texas and that area. And that was actually my first time using in-ears. And I didn't like it back then because I didn't know how to use it, to be honest.
It takes a while to get used to it, to be honest,
Especially, and I wasn't used to the, where it's like isolated and then I can hear the crowd. And I'm like, I want to hear the crowd. Right. I don't want to be isolated. Like, it was weird.
It is weird. It takes a while to get your brain to sort of adjust to that. I found that the people who've been the most against have been singers for a really long time because it doesn't they don't feel the resonation in the same exact way. And I understand. I totally I get it. I really, really get it. I've worked with some unbelievable singers who just will try it for like half a day and go, I can't do it. It takes once you get the transition, it is great for almost every singer I've ever played with, but that getting into that and then understanding, this is what you have to readjust how you feel about certain things, right? That's the hard part about being a singer versus a guitar player. Like if I can hear myself and it's halfway decent, even if my finger hurts, I'll be able to get through the gig. But if you're not in the right headspace as a singer, it's a different thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think, oh, sorry, when I sing and I have the in-ears, I can hear myself clear, so that helps me. But I don't know. I think Zully may have to get like one of those customized one or something because she's dancing, she's moving, so those
Yes.
in-ears are flying
They
off.
will, they will, right. Yeah, you need to get custom molds
Yeah,
probably.
she needs to
Yeah.
get like,
Yeah.
and then maybe
So they
right
fit
now, I
good.
know she likes the wedges. She likes the two wedges right
Yeah,
left and
yeah,
right.
yeah. It's you know what the thing is when I've had in-ears though, I don't mind them. Like I'm okay with them. But like you said, I think I just need to get used to it, get pairs that will actually
Yeah.
stay on because and also again, I'm all sweaty and they're
Yeah.
falling out of my ear
Yep.
and I'm
Yep.
like,
You gotta get the right
you
fit.
know.
Really
Yeah, so
important.
I gotta get the right one. But I do enjoy it because it's almost it's almost like when I have it in ear, I'm like, well, I'm definitely going to hear every wrong note that I'm going to sing tonight.
Yeah.
And I even tell the boys sometimes, I'm like, what? I'm like, you guys have to like wear in ears and hear me mess up all night. And they're like, Zully, what are you talking about? I'm like,
You
you
messed
heard
up.
it. You know, you heard when I cracked. You know, they're like, no. I'm like,
You're kind of like ignorance is bliss, right? You're like,
yeah.
I don't need to know. I don't need to know.
Yeah, exactly. But I would obviously I would have in ears, and especially like if God permits us to be able to sing in bigger venues, I'm gonna need to use in ears, you know. So, it's definitely something that I just have to get used to.
Yeah.
And we'll get there.
So, it's a tool in the belt in that way too, because being able to do it all, some stages now, I mean, I don't know if you've played some, I know it's gotten more and more frequent for me. They want silent stages or as close to silent as possible, maybe other than the drums. And it's like, and sound guys recently have been like, no, turn your amp lower and turn and I grew up like you two did, just putting a big speaker and putting my amp behind me and cranking and let's go, so it's taken a while to kind of get into the mindset of, okay, so I am going to have to live here in a lot of the venues I play. So if I have to be comfortable enough that if that's an option, I mean, we'll talk about theater in a second. But all the modern theaters is you cannot have no stage sound, no amplified stage sound. So all the guitar stuff anyway is you have to have direct options in order to do that. And if you're playing flute, you're in a corner and you're boxed off. If you're, you know what I mean? Like the drummer has usually a giant cage where they're you can't hear, it's a better experience for the audience. And they have the sound guys have more control, which if they're great, that's awesome. And if they're not, that's a story for another day. But yes, that's a different podcast. But so before I let you all go and have a wonderful day, and we'll talk about where people can find you, and I will put it in the show notes as well. Zully, let's talk a little bit about some of the theater that you've done, which is obviously a different world from the band world. Can you tell me a little bit about that journey, that process, or maybe some of your favorite performances? I know you did In the Heights recently, right?
Yes. Okay. Oh man. Musical theater is really like my love, right? Along with my band, it's like they're my loves. I just find myself just falling into that world. And I didn't grow up with it, so my first I remember my first I guess you want to say movie that I've seen that was a musical theater show was West Side Story when it was in 2 DVDs, y'all. Yes, 2 DVDs, part 1 and part 2. And I remember watching it and being like, what is this? This is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. They're singing and they're dancing, and it's a story about Puerto Ricans. You know what I mean? It's like, it was just something that I saw and I was like, this was amazing. And I remember listening to Maria for the first time, which was sung by Tony, right? It's a male song, but listening to him sing that or watching him sing that, I was just like, this is the most amazing, most beautiful piece of music that I want to be called Maria, And that's when I fell in love with it. And I actually want to give thanks to my cousin Sharon, who is also a singer, she was the one that showed me the movie, and I was like, this is amazing. And then in middle school, my teacher then was like, you should be in the musical or in the show this year. And I remember at that time, my mom, growing up in church, my mom was like, you're only singing for God. And when my teacher was like, you should do musical theater, like shows, I told her, I said, I don't think my mom is going to allow me to sing. And she's like, well, why? I was like, because she says I need to sing for God. And my teacher was like, I'll talk to your mom, I'll talk to your parents, and I'll let them know that this isn't a bad show. It's a good show, which was actually The Wiz.
Mm.
So that was my first like full show that, because I had done other things in elementary school, like sing the national anthem every day for 4 years and do all these other things. But once I went to middle school and my teacher taught me about that and said, you should do this, and I did it. I got that bug. I got bitten, and I said, this is what I would love to do for the rest of my life. Like if I had, my dream come true would be sing with my band and do a Broadway show, and have the OGs be in the pit of the Broadway show. You know what I mean? If I could have it my way, that would be my, ultimate dream. Tell my story in a Broadway show, right? But because of that and what I was taught in middle school, it just kept going and going. I remember high school, I get to Stanford High, I'm a freshman. And this is back when auditions were not closed. Like it wasn't like a couple of teachers and you and that's it. This is high school where everybody auditioned in front of each other. And I'm a freshman and I'm like, oh my gosh, these people don't know me. I'm going to sing, blah, blah, blah. I remember I went and sang, which freshman year we did The Wiz. So I auditioned, and I remember the drama teacher then, Mr. Michael Lamone, he like stood up and his eyes went. He goes, "You're what grade?" I was like, "I'm a freshman." He was like, "I have you for 4 years." he was like, "Oh my God," and it was little things like that I noticed. I am doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to be singing. I'm supposed to be having fun doing it with my peers and getting to know different kinds of music. I've done about 35 musical shows.
Wow.
That's either being a lead or having a solo or simply being an ensemble. This is one thing that I kind of wanted to say too. So, I sing with a band everywhere. I have gigs all the time, and I'm very blessed that people want to see me and they want me back, right? I'm like, thank you, God, for giving me this opportunity. But when it comes to musical theater, because I love it so much, I don't mind if I don't get, let's just say, a lead role or a solo, because for me, it's the feeling of being in the show. It's that community. It's feeling like, hey guys, I gotta go because I have rehearsal today. I love that. I love going and learning something and maybe leaving rehearsal all sweaty and being like, I don't know if I'm going to get that. But guess what? You practice, you rehearse at home, and you get it.
Right.
And so, a lot of these things that I've done growing up has made me who I am today with all the kinds of shows that I've done. I've done like Rent, right? Rent to Something Rotten to Little Shop of Horrors to Jesus Christ Superstar to In the Heights. It's just a bunch of things, and it helps me also vocally when it comes to when I do my riffs or when I do certain arrangements in songs. I think the musical theater background helps me go from a belt to like a falsetto to my head voice and all the way back down, right? It kind of gives that sort of theater feel, right? If I'm doing like a to the up and to all the way down, because mostly in musical theater, it's not really like riff, they're very kind of like, you gotta stay here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Certain shows and certain songs, you have that capability of going up and down and doing all these different things, which is what I put into my music today.
Using different parts of your voice in a way that helps you with other music that you're doing.
1000%. And dynamics is very important with singers. I think that singers need to remember that. I know myself. If I'm, like I said earlier, if I'm at 70%, I'm not going to try doing that note that I normally would belt my face off because I'm just not confident enough that day
Yeah.
to hit that note. So what am I going to do? I'm going to put it in my head voice or in falsetto and make it sound pretty and comfortable for me so that I'm not cracking or damaging my vocal cords just because I want to hit that note so hard. I think many singers, they want to, which again, nothing wrong with it. They want to impress. I don't want to impress. I just want to sing. I just want to sing from here. And what this can do that day is what it's going to do that day. Because again, I'm human and I can't always sound absolutely great all the time. You know what I mean? There are days it might be a little bit different. But once you know your body and your vocal capabilities, then you know how to play around with it. And, I'm not about really like showing off and doing that. I'm more of just like whatever I feel in that moment is what I feel. Now, musical theater is different, right? When you do a theater show, you got to sing the way it is and the way it's written in the book, and you have to stick to that. But it also shows you a little bit of control, right? Control your voice. Like, okay, not everything needs a riff. Not everything needs to be belting. Not everything needs to be in falsetto. There's different levels to it. So it's definitely taught me a lot on how to do certain things with my music, and I'll do it forever. I think it's just something that I love. I don't know. I wish I could do it all the time.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
I
great.
would quit my job and do it, but I can't. Until then,
throw that out into the universe too.
Broadway.
The lights on you, spotlight. Oh man, that's awesome. That's really great to hear that.
Yeah.
And I like that what you said about I don't sing to impress. I feel like there's a lot of people who are like me, and I get it's a human emotion. I get it. But if you can connect with something that's bigger than yourself, or just the fact that you're doing this not for the applause, you're doing it because it touches something deep in you. I mean, you can feel it when people do that.
Yeah, it's definitely, I was saying at Park City the other night, I without music, I feel like I wouldn't be who I am. Like I need it.
Yeah.
And I just want to be myself always and forever, no matter where I am, no matter who I'm singing. If it's one person, if it's 1,000, I'm always going to be Zully, Zuzu everywhere I go. You know what I mean? And I want when people hear me or know me or get to know me to always think the same way. She's been who she is since the beginning, since we met her. She sings with her soul and all her heart. And that's all I want. I'm not here to try to say, like, for example, there's like a lot of people that are obsessed with like whistle tones, right? I think whistle tones are amazing. Can I do it? Hell no. But guess what? I think people that can do it, it's just really a beautiful gift for them. Sure. And it's so amazing. And, there are things that someone else can do way better than I can, but that's okay because that's who they are and I'm who I am, right? So, but I actually have a question for you because I'm very curious to know what your response is. You've done Jesus Christ Superstar, right? Mm-hmm. And you've done Rent. Mm-hmm. Which would you say is your favorite out of those two?
Oh man, that is hard. Wow. I mean, it's funny because I never considered myself a theater guitarist. That was never, and it's just sort of come my way, which has been really cool, very organically. But I used to love listening and watching musical films when I was younger. And the first one I saw was Rocky Horror, and I loved it. The second one was Jesus Christ Superstar, and I just thought it was awesome. God, it's a rock musical. This is crazy. So from a childhood sort of heart point of view, I would say Jesus Christ Superstar. As far as actually playing, though, I might have to give it to Rent just because it's just a very special. The story is really special, and the guitar is very prominent. And it is in Jesus Christ Superstar too, but it also there's a lot of different flavors that I get to do, and I really enjoy the variety. So I would, if I had to answer, I'm going to say playing Rent. And maybe listening to Jesus Christ Superstar.
Yeah, I think they both have such cool guitar, like like riffs and
Yeah.
certain sections. I mean,
Yeah.
in Jesus Christ Superstar, it's the song that Judas sings that for some reason I'm blanking out right now. Heaven's on your mind,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And that have that, it's that, oh
Oh yeah.
man,
Yeah.
it's just one of those things when
Great
you hear
riffs.
it, you're
Yeah.
like, this is what I love about musical theater, right? You can have a period piece with modern
With
rock
modern,
music,
right.
and it's just a cool a mix and combination of things. So I was very curious to know your response
Awesome.
on that.
Yeah. Sorry. Now that may change tomorrow. I might wake up and say, I'm gonna change that. So, all right, before I let you all go, I want to know, let's do this thing real quick, which is if you have one piece of advice to give to a modern day musician, and the way that I sort of picture this is there's musicians now who are, let's say they're in their like mid 20s. They're just starting to get a handle on that. Maybe they went to school for it, or maybe they're just starting to really gig now and trying to find their way. Do you have any sort of quick pithy advice you would give? Joey, you want to start with that?
Yeah, I'm gonna quote a famous musician because I really feel what he said in this particular video should be translated to everyone globally. Do your homework, do your scales and practice. If you're into theory, great, composition, all that stuff is phenomenal. It's going to make you a better musician. You're going to be able to understand the music better. But I believe one of the most important component is to be just a good person, to be a solid person to work with. If you have all that knowledge of Dorian scales and I don't know what, all these theories, terminologies, but you're not going to be somebody to vibe with, someone that you're going to be, we're going to kick it in the back room, just having fun before the gig. If you're not going to be chilling like that, you're not going to get a call from Zully and the OGs or anybody else. Because, like I said, all those things are important. All those things that will make you a great musician. And putting in the hard work, the 10,000 plus hours and all that stuff. But if you're not going to be someone that's going to be able to work with, for example, at Broad River Church, we've compiled a great set of musicians, and you included, that you guys are so well versed in your instrument. You guys are true professionals. But when you come there, the leader is Pastor Kevin. The leader is Sarah, right? She's the executive director, and we all still go like, we're not like, well, I got 4 years degree from a music school. What are you talking to? No,
that was supposed to be Lydian, Sarah. No.
Yeah. What's major 7?
Yeah.
None of you guys come in humble. You come prepared, of course. You come in, knowing your role. This is what you do as a guitar player. This is what you do as a drummer. This is what I'm going to do as a piano player. And that's how you keep jobs, or you keep gigs like this, Zully and the OGs as well, or any other working band that's out there. That's how you keep it, so do your due diligence, do your homework, do all that stuff. Kudos. But also be a good person, be someone that we want to work with.
Huge. A lot of people get in their own way when it comes to that.
Yeah.
And
ego's got to get checked out.
Yeah. Awesome advice, man. That was great. Zully, what about you?
I think my advice is to anyone out there like us we're just trying to make it, people are always going to talk. They're always going to have something to say. You can be the best and they will always have something to say. At the end of the day, stay true to you. Be you. If you want to play the weirdest music in life, let me tell you, you got a family out there waiting for you. So stay true to yourself, what you want to do, what you want to play, whatever makes you happy. Because if you're happy right here, whatever comes out of you, baby, the audience is going to see it and feel it.
I love it. That's really great. This has been really fun, you two. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
This is really, really great, and I hope I get a chance to play with both of you really soon. Can you tell everyone where they should look up either individually or the band? Where should people get in contact with you?
Yeah, so we have obviously our personal Instagram pages, but I first want to shout out our band page, which is on Instagram. It's ZR and AND, the OGs, OGS. And you can find all of our content there. I'm actually uploading a lot of content that our friends took from our gig at Park City. So you'll be seeing a lot more videos posted there. My personal page is Zully Ramos Music on Instagram, also on Facebook, and on TikTok as well. That's ZULLY Ramos Music, RAMOS. But then I also have a YouTube channel. You can just plug in Zully Ramos and you'll see a bunch of performances my brother and I actually did during COVID when we were all locked in. And, you know, thank God for my brother as well, again, because we had each other during those days and we tried to be safe as possible, but continue the music alive. So if you want to check out some older stuff that we have on there, please do so. It'll be under Zully Ramos. So
beautiful. Thank you all. Joey, you want to?
Yeah, just follow our page, the ZR and the OGs. We have a lot of upcoming dates. We have duo dates where it's just my sister and I. We have full 8-piece band dates. We have 5-piece band dates. A couple of shows to mention for this year that are big. It's going to be one in Hartford. That's going to be really cool. It's going to be, I think I'm saying this correct, Bushnell Park.
Bushnell Park, yep.
It's called Taste of Connecticut. So the best food vendors, the best
May
band.
17th.
Yes, May 17th.
May 17th. Mm-hmm.
And it will be at Sugar Hollow Tap Room. I think that's what it's called. In June, doing a collaboration with their house funk band.
I want to come.
That's going to be fun. That's a full day of music. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Fantastic. Oh.
Also, his Instagram is Joey Ramos Music Man.
I do solos too.
That's awesome. All right. Oh, thank you so much. I'll talk to you later.
Thank you, John.